I'm going to be frank with you.
Yours as an executive, I see no value in you. Does that make sense?
I'm sorry.
Am I wrong? Oh, Linda, before you go,
Forgot to mention, I received a few
let's not forget, I'm the boss. You're working for me.
Welcome to Z Cineplex, say your ultimate entertainment destination. Welcome to Z Cineplex, the home of entertainment, creativity, and cinematic excitement. Our channel is dedicated to bringing viewers a rich collection of engaging content that celebrates the world of movies, storytelling, and visual entertainment. Whether you're a passionate film enthusiast, someone who enjoys discovering new cinematic experiences, or simply looking for high-quality entertainment, Z Cineplex is designed to be your go-to destination. We strive to create content that is informative, enjoyable, and engaging for audiences of all ages, offering a unique blend of movie-related features, entertainment updates, insightful discussions, creative videos, and much more. Every upload is crafted with attention to quality, ensuring that our viewers receive an enjoyable experience that keeps them coming back for more. At Z Cineplex, we believe that cinema is more than just watching films. It's about experiencing emotions, exploring stories, appreciating creativity, and connecting with people who share the same passion for entertainment. Our mission is to build a vibrant community where movie lovers and entertainment enthusiasts can discover exciting content, share their opinions, and stay connected with the latest trends in the entertainment industry. We are committed to consistently improving our content, embracing new ideas, and delivering videos that entertain, inform, and inspire our growing audience. Whether you're here for movie highlights, entertainment discussions, reviews, cinematic moments, or fresh creative content, Z Cineplex promises an enjoyable journey filled with excitement, quality, and unforgettable entertainment. Join our community by subscribing, turning on notifications, and becoming part of the Z Cineplex family as we continue to explore the fascinating world of cinema and entertainment together. Thank you for your support, and welcome to Z Cineplex, wherever video brings entertainment to life. Sent Help is a 2026 American survival horror thriller film directed and co-produced by Sam Raimi, marking his return to feature-length survival horror and suspense after years of working across a variety of genres. The screenplay was written by Damien Shannon and Mark Swift, who crafted a tightly focused, character-driven narrative that combines psychological tension, survival drama, and horror elements. Rather than relying primarily on supernatural threats, the film emphasizes the emotional and psychological consequences of extreme isolation, forcing its characters into a relentless struggle against both nature and their own inner demons. The film stars Rachel McAdams and Dylan O'Brien in the lead roles as an ambitious employee and her demanding corporate boss, whose already strained professional relationship is pushed to its breaking point after the small aircraft transporting them crashes into the Pacific Ocean. As the only known survivors, they wash ashore on a remote, uninhabited island far from established shipping routes or civilization, where rescue appears increasingly unlikely. With virtually no supplies and limited means of communication, they are forced to work together to find food and fresh water, build shelter, fend off the island's natural dangers, and survive severe weather, injuries, dehydration, starvation, and constant uncertainty. As days gradually turn into weeks, their fragile alliance begins to unravel under the immense weight of fear, exhaustion, grief, guilt, and desperation. Hidden resentments, conflicting personalities, long-buried insecurities, and psychological trauma slowly emerge, transforming their desperate fight for survival into a tense psychological battle in which trust becomes as scarce as food and every decision carries life or death consequences. Raimi's direction balances moments of quiet emotional introspection with bursts of intense suspense, creating an atmosphere of escalating dread that explores themes of survival, morality, resilience, guilt, human dependency, and the fragile boundaries between cooperation and betrayal. Sandhelp had its world premiere at the TCL Chinese Theater in Los Angeles, California, on January 21, 2026, where it was met with a warm and enthusiastic reception from critics and invited audiences. Early reviews praised the film's suspenseful pacing, atmospheric cinematography, emotionally grounded storytelling, and Sam Raimi's confident return to grounded thriller filmmaking. Particular acclaim was directed toward the chemistry between Rachel McAdams and Dylan O'Brien, whose performances were widely recognized for conveying the emotional complexity of two individuals trapped in an increasingly desperate situation. Following its successful premiere, the film was released theatrically in the United States by 20th Century Studios on January 30, 2026. Receiving a wide release in standard and premium large-format theaters. Upon release, Sandhelp earned generally positive reviews from critics, who commended Raimi's restrained yet highly effective direction, the screenplay's gradual escalation of psychological tension, the film's immersive island setting, strong visual craftsmanship, and its ability to sustain suspense with a largely two-person cast. Many reviewers also highlighted the film's thoughtful examination of human survival, isolation, trust, and emotional endurance, noting that it successfully blended survival thriller conventions with psychological horror without relying on excessive spectacle. Produced on an estimated budget of $40 million, the film performed solidly at the global box office, ultimately grossing approximately $94 million worldwide during its theatrical run. While not a blockbuster, its worldwide earnings comfortably exceeded its production budget, making it a profitable theatrical release for 20th Century Studios and further reinforcing Sam Raimi's reputation for delivering efficient, suspenseful genre films that combine commercial appeal with strong character-driven storytelling. Linda Little is a highly intelligent but painfully introverted corporate strategist whose years of unwavering loyalty, exceptional analytical skills, and tireless dedication have made her indispensable to the multinational corporation where she works. Despite consistently producing innovative ideas and helping secure major business successes behind the scenes, she receives little appreciation from her superiors or colleagues. Her awkward social mannerisms, lack of confidence, and inability to navigate office politics leave her isolated within the company's competitive culture, where charisma and personal connections are valued far more than competence. For years, Linda has been promised that her hard work would eventually earn her a promotion to senior executive. She believes that opportunity has finally arrived when Bradley Preston, the privileged and arrogant son of the company's late founder, assumes control of the business as its new chief executive officer. Instead of recognizing Linda's years of service, Bradley awards the prestigious executive position to Donovan, a recently hired employee whose greatest qualification is his long-standing friendship with Bradley as a former fraternity brother. Publicly dismissing Linda's accomplishments, Bradley coldly explains that while she may be exceptionally capable, she simply lacks the charm, physical attractiveness, confidence, and leadership presence necessary to represent the company at the executive level. He relegates her to a meaningless position with virtually no future, making it painfully clear that her career has reached a dead end. Humiliated before her co-workers and devastated by years of broken promises, Linda finally confronts Bradley in his office, unleashing years of suppressed frustration and resentment. Rather than reacting angrily, Bradley appears amused by her unexpected assertiveness. Claiming that her passion has impressed him, he unexpectedly offers her another chance to prove her value by accompanying him, Donovan, and several higher-ranking executives aboard the company's private aircraft for a business trip to Bangkok, Thailand. There, He claims her strategic expertise will play a crucial role in securing an important international corporate merger worth billions of dollars. Although deeply skeptical of Bradley's sincerity and suspecting he may simply be manipulating her once again, Linda reluctantly accepts the invitation, believing it may represent her final opportunity to earn the professional recognition she has pursued her entire career. The atmosphere aboard the luxury corporate jet quickly becomes hostile as Bradley, Donovan, and the other executives continue treating Linda as little more than an object of ridicule. During the flight, Donovan discovers an embarrassing audition tape Linda had recorded years earlier for the reality television competition Survivor, a dream she had quietly pursued in hopes of escaping her unfulfilling corporate life. Rather than respecting her privacy, Donovan plays the video through the aircraft's entertainment system for everyone on board. As the executives erupt in laughter, Linda becomes the target of relentless humiliation, enduring cruel jokes and personal insults while Bradley does little to stop the mockery. Before the uncomfortable situation can escalate further, the aircraft enters a violent tropical storm over the Gulf of Thailand. What begins as severe turbulence rapidly develops into a catastrophic mechanical failure as both engines suffer critical damage. The aircraft loses altitude uncontrollably while warning alarms sound throughout the cabin. Moments later, explosive decompression tears through the fuselage, ripping sections of the aircraft apart and violently pulling passengers toward the open sky. Panic engulfs the cabin as luggage, furniture, and people are hurled through the shattered aircraft. In the chaos, Donovan abandons all concern for others and desperately attempts to improve his own chances of survival by wrestling Linda from her seat, even trying to strangle her. Fighting for her life, Linda grabs a metal fork from a nearby meal tray and stabs Donovan in self-defense. Seconds later, Donovan and the remaining executives are sucked from the aircraft into the raging storm below. The crippled airplane eventually crashes into the sea with tremendous force, scattering wreckage and its few remaining survivors across the open water. Linda regains consciousness the following morning on the shore of a remote, uninhabited tropical island in the Gulf of Thailand. Bruised, exhausted, and traumatized by the disaster, she begins searching the coastline for survivors before discovering Bradley lying unconscious among the wreckage. Although he is alive, he has sustained multiple fractures, severe dehydration, deep lacerations, and numerous internal injuries that leave him unable to care for himself. Accepting the grim reality that rescue may never come, Linda immediately shifts into survival mode. Despite having no professional wilderness experience, she uses her intelligence, resourcefulness, and determination to establish a functioning campsite. She builds shelters from palm leaves and driftwood, collects rainwater, starts fires using primitive methods, fashions fishing equipment from salvaged debris, forages for edible fruit and vegetation, and gradually transforms the isolated beach into a sustainable refuge. Bradley, however, refuses to acknowledge her competence. Even while completely dependent upon Linda for food, water, medical treatment, and protection, he continues speaking to her as though she remains nothing more than his subordinate employee, criticizing her decisions and issuing arrogant demands. Eventually exhausted by his entitlement, Linda deliberately abandons Bradley for 2 days, forcing him to experience complete helplessness without her assistance. When she returns, Bradley is barely alive, suffering from severe dehydration, starvation, and exposure. Humbled by the experience and recognizing that Linda alone has kept them alive, he reluctantly begins accepting her authority. Over the following weeks, Linda expands their chances of long-term survival by mastering increasingly difficult survival skills, including spearfishing, trapping wildlife, identifying medicinal plants, constructing more permanent shelters, and eventually hunting and killing a wild boar that provides food for an extended period. During one expedition across the island, she notices a rescue boat passing within signaling distance. Realizing that rescue is entirely possible, Linda silently watches the vessel disappear over the horizon without attempting to attract its attention, making a conscious decision to remain stranded while Bradley remains completely unaware that an opportunity for escape has already come and gone. As weeks slowly become months, Bradley gradually regains his health under Linda's care and begins learning many of the survival techniques she has mastered. Together they fish, gather food, improve their shelter, and adapt to the rhythms of island life. For a brief period, their relationship appears to evolve from one of employer and employee into something resembling genuine companionship, although unresolved tension continues simmering beneath the surface. Linda repeatedly warns Bradley never to explore the opposite side of the island, insisting the area contains poisonous vegetation, unstable cliffs, and dangerous wildlife. Unknown to Bradley, these warnings are entirely fabricated. One evening, after sharing homemade fruit wine fermented from tropical fruit, Linda finally opens up about the darkest chapter of her past. She tearfully reveals that she endured years of physical and emotional abuse from her alcoholic husband. One night, after another violent confrontation, she knowingly allowed him to drive away while intoxicated instead of stopping him. His subsequent fatal car accident left her burdened with overwhelming guilt, yet also relieved to be free from years of abuse. Bradley listens sympathetically and appears genuinely moved by her confession, comforting her and strengthening the emotional bond between them. Secretly, however, Bradley has no intention of remaining with Linda. Believing she has become emotionally unstable and fearing she may eventually become dangerous, he quietly plots his escape. He secretly prepares a meal contaminated with poisonous island berries and serves it to Linda before constructing a crude raft from driftwood, vines, and salvaged aircraft materials. Convinced the poison has killed her, Bradley launches his raft into the ocean under cover of darkness. His escape attempt quickly ends in disaster as violent currents and crashing waves destroy the fragile raft within minutes, leaving him struggling to stay afloat. Linda, who had recognized the poisonous berries before consuming a lethal amount, rescues the exhausted Bradley from drowning and carries him back to shore, fully aware that he deliberately attempted to murder her. Feeling deeply betrayed after risking everything to keep Bradley alive for months, Linda decides that death would be too merciful a punishment. Instead, she extracts venom from a blue-ringed octopus and administers a carefully measured dose that temporarily paralyzes Bradley while leaving him fully conscious and aware of everything happening around him. Exploiting his terror, Linda stages an elaborate psychological deception by convincing him that she has surgically castrated him while he was unable to move or defend himself. Although the procedure never actually occurs, Bradley completely believes her, and the emotional trauma shatters his remaining confidence. The horrifying experience permanently shifts the balance of power between them, leaving Bradley psychologically broken while firmly establishing Linda as the unquestioned authority on the island. Although he eventually regains full physical mobility, the trust between them is completely destroyed, replaced by mutual suspicion, manipulation, resentment, and growing paranoia as both begin viewing the other as an existential threat. Several months later, after official search and rescue operations for the missing aircraft have long since ended, Linda's carefully controlled existence is unexpectedly disrupted. While harvesting fruit deep within the island, she encounters Bradley's devoted fiancé tilde copyrightee, Zuri, who has refused to accept his presumed death. Determined to find him, Zuri has independently hired a local boat captain to continue searching the remote islands where the plane may have crashed. Faced with the terrifying realization that rescue has finally arrived and that returning to civilization would mean abandoning the only place where she has ever possessed genuine purpose, independence, and control, Linda suffers a profound psychological collapse. Rather than welcoming Zuri and revealing Bradley's whereabouts, she deliberately leads Zuri and the captain toward a dangerously unstable cliff overlooking the sea. During the confrontation, both fall to their deaths below. Although visibly horrified by what she has done, Linda buries their bodies in shallow graves and returns alone to the camp, becoming increasingly withdrawn, emotionally detached, and consumed by guilt. Bradley notices her sudden behavioral changes and growing emotional instability. Suspicious that something terrible has happened, he begins secretly exploring the island on his own. Eventually he discovers the hidden graves containing Zuri and the boat captain, uncovering undeniable evidence that Linda intentionally prevented their rescue. When Bradley confronts Linda with his discovery, she desperately insists the deaths were tragic accidents rather than deliberate murders. Bradley refuses to believe her explanation, accusing her of sacrificing innocent lives simply to preserve the fantasy world she has created for herself on the island. The confrontation erupts into a brutal physical struggle during which Bradley severely injures Linda by permanently damaging one of her eyes before she stabs him in self-defense. Bradley escapes into the jungle, determined to flee from Linda forever. While desperately searching for safety, he stumbles upon an astonishing secret hidden beyond the supposedly dangerous side of the Edyll luxurious beachfront estate equipped with modern furniture, running water, solar-powered electricity, stocked kitchens, recreational facilities, comfortable bedrooms, and every necessity required for long-term habitation. Linda soon catches up with him and calmly admits that she discovered the property months earlier after seeing the first rescue boat. Rather than revealing its existence, she intentionally hid it from Bradley because life on the island had finally transformed her from an invisible, undervalued office worker into someone who possessed complete independence, confidence, and control over her own destiny. She openly confesses that she intentionally caused Zuri and the captain to fall from the cliff because allowing Bradley to leave would have destroyed the only life in which she had ever truly mattered. Armed with a shotgun, Linda confronts Bradley in one final emotional standoff. Bradley desperately tells her that he loves her and claims he no longer wishes to leave the island, pleading for another chance. For a brief moment Linda appears tempted to believe him, but she notices Bradley secretly reaching for a concealed weapon. Recognizing that he is once again attempting to deceive and kill her, Linda violently overpowers him during the ensuing struggle and ultimately kills him by repeatedly striking him with a golf club found at the beachfront estate, bringing their toxic relationship to a bloody and tragic conclusion. 1 year later, Linda has been rescued and returned to civilization, where the world celebrates her as the miraculous sole survivor of one of the deadliest aviation disasters in recent memory. The media portrays her as an inspiring symbol of courage, resilience, and determination. She becomes enormously wealthy through exclusive television interviews, endorsement deals, public speaking engagements, and the publication of a best-selling memoir detailing her incredible survival story. Hollywood quickly adapts her book into a feature film, further cementing her status as an international celebrity. At a prestigious celebrity charity golf tournament organized to promote both the film adaptation and her forthcoming motivational self-help book, Linda confidently addresses reporters and fans who admire her perseverance. With complete composure and absolute conviction, she summarizes the philosophy she believes allowed her to survive against impossible odds. No help is coming, so you'd better start saving yourself. As cameras flash and cheering crowds celebrate her triumph, the film ends on a chillingly ambiguous note, leaving audiences to wonder whether Linda is truly an extraordinary survivor who overcame unimaginable hardship or a deeply traumatized woman whose prolonged isolation permanently erased the boundaries between resilience, obsession, self-preservation, and moral corruption. Rachel McAdams stars as Linda Edyll, the film's central protagonist and emotional anchor. Linda is an exceptionally intelligent but deeply introverted strategist working in the planning and strategy department of a major financial management company. For years, she has dedicated herself to the company's success, earning a reputation for her remarkable analytical mind, meticulous attention to detail, and ability to solve complex business problems. Despite her professional brilliance, Linda is repeatedly overlooked for promotions and leadership opportunities because of her awkward social demeanor, lack of political influence, and inability to conform to the charismatic corporate image favored by senior management. Her colleagues frequently underestimate her, while executives exploit her work without giving her proper recognition or credit. Outside the office, Linda is an enthusiastic survival hobbyist who spends much of her free time studying wilderness survival, bushcraft, navigation, primitive shelter construction, fire-making techniques, fishing, hunting, foraging, and emergency preparedness. What initially appears to be an unusual pastime gradually proves essential after she survives a catastrophic plane crash that strands her on a remote island. Throughout the film, Linda evolves from an insecure and overlooked office employee into a remarkably capable survivor whose intelligence, resilience, and adaptability enable her to overcome extraordinary physical challenges. However, prolonged isolation, repeated betrayal, An overwhelming psychological trauma gradually eroded her moral judgment, transforming her into a deeply complex and increasingly unstable character whose desperate need for purpose and control begins to outweigh her humanity. Rachel McAdams delivers one of the most demanding performances of her career, portraying Linda's remarkable emotional evolution with extraordinary nuance, balancing vulnerability, determination, quiet humor, emotional fragility, psychological instability, and terrifying unpredictability as the character slowly descends into obsession while fighting to preserve the only life in which she has ever truly felt empowered. Dylan O'Brien portrays Bradley Preston, the newly appointed chief executive officer of the financial management company where Linda has spent years working. Bradley is the privileged son of the company's late founder and former CEO, inheriting both the leadership position and enormous corporate influence through family legacy rather than personal achievement. Handsome, charismatic, socially confident, and naturally persuasive, Bradley projects the image of an ideal modern executive, yet beneath his polished exterior lies an entitled, self-serving, and often manipulative personality. He values loyalty to friends and personal relationships above competence, rewarding those within his inner circle while dismissing employees who lack social influence regardless of their abilities. His decision to deny Linda a long-promised executive promotion in favor of his inexperienced former fraternity brother Donovan establishes the emotional foundation for the film's central conflict. Following the devastating plane crash, Bradley finds himself completely dependent upon the very employee he had spent years underestimating. Unable to survive on his own due to serious injuries, he is forced to rely on Linda's knowledge and resourcefulness while gradually confronting the collapse of the privileged identity that once defined him. As months of isolation strip away the comforts, authority, and status he once enjoyed, Bradley undergoes a profound psychological transformation, becoming increasingly desperate, fearful, manipulative, and morally compromised in his determination to escape. Dylan O'Brien delivers a layered performance that captures Bradley's gradual descent from an arrogant corporate executive accustomed to power and privilege into a frightened and psychologically fractured survivor struggling to reconcile his dependence upon Linda with his desperate desire to regain control of his own life. Edyll Ismail appears as Zuri, Bradley Preston's devoted fiancée tilde copyrightee, whose unwavering love and determination drive one of the film's most emotionally significant storylines. Refusing to accept official reports declaring Bradley dead following the airline disaster, Zuri continues searching long after government rescue operations have been suspended. Motivated by hope rather than evidence, she independently finances a final expedition into the remote islands where the aircraft is believed to have crashed, hiring an experienced local boat captain to continue the search. Her eventual arrival on the island introduces the first genuine opportunity for rescue and symbolizes Bradley's connection to the life he left behind. However, her unexpected appearance also shatters the fragile psychological balance that has developed between Linda and Bradley during their prolonged isolation. Zuri unknowingly becomes the catalyst for Linda's complete emotional collapse, triggering the tragic chain of events that ultimately leads to the film's violent climax. Despite relatively limited screen time, Ismail gives Zuri warmth, compassion, emotional sincerity, and quiet determination, making her fate one of the film's most heartbreaking turning points. Dennis Haysbert portrays Franklin, a respected senior executive within the financial management company and one of the very few members of upper management who genuinely recognizes Linda's exceptional intelligence and professional value. Calm, experienced, and highly respected throughout the organization, Franklin consistently treats Linda with dignity and fairness, appreciating the quality of her strategic thinking while quietly acknowledging that the company has repeatedly failed to reward her contributions. Unlike Bradley and many of the younger executives, Franklin judges employees based on competence rather than personality or popularity. Although his role is confined primarily to the film's opening corporate sequences before the plane crash, Franklin serves as an important moral counterbalance to the company's toxic leadership culture, reinforcing the tragedy of Linda's professional neglect and illustrating that not everyone within the organization failed to appreciate her abilities. Xavier Samuel portrays Donovan Murphy, Bradley Preston's former fraternity brother, closest personal friend, and newest executive appointment within the company. Despite possessing significantly less experience than Linda, Donovan is promoted largely because of his personal relationship with Bradley, embodying the culture of favoritism and corporate nepotism that has repeatedly prevented Linda from advancing her career. Confident, arrogant, immature, and openly dismissive of those outside Bradley's social circle, Donovan delights in humiliating Linda throughout the business trip. His most memorable act of cruelty occurs aboard the company's private jet, where he publicly broadcasts Linda's years-old Survivor audition tape to the other executives, encouraging them to mock her personal ambitions and awkward personality. During the catastrophic aircraft failure, Donovan's superficial charm immediately disappears as panic overwhelms him. Abandoning all concern for anyone else, he violently attacks Linda in an attempt to steal her seat and improve his own chances of survival. His selfish actions force Linda to defend herself by stabbing him with a fork moments before explosive decompression tears him from the aircraft. Samuel portrays Donovan as the embodiment of corporate arrogance and entitlement, making his downfall both shocking and narratively symbolic. Chris Payne plays Chase, another influential member of Bradley Preston's close executive circle and one of the senior employees accompanying the delegation on the Bangkok business trip. Like Donovan, Chase enjoys professional success largely because of his friendship with Bradley rather than exceptional talent or experience. Throughout the opening act, he reinforces the company's exclusionary culture by participating in the subtle ridicule and social isolation directed toward Linda. Although Chase receives comparatively limited screen time, his character contributes significantly to establishing the toxic corporate environment that has shaped Linda's years of frustration and emotional isolation, representing the broader system of favoritism, elitism, and workplace politics that ultimately fuels the story's central conflict. Anat Warkelnikra portrays the unnamed boat captain, an experienced local mariner hired by Zuri to assist in her independent search for Bradley after official rescue missions have been abandoned. Possessing extensive knowledge of the surrounding islands and coastal waters, the captain becomes instrumental in locating the remote island where Bradley and Linda have survived for months. His arrival briefly offers genuine hope that the ordeal may finally come to an end, but he ultimately becomes an innocent victim of Linda's deteriorating mental state and desperate determination to preserve the isolated existence she has created for herself. Though his role is relatively brief, the captain represents the outside world finally reaching the survivors, making his fate one of the film's most tragic consequences of Linda's psychological transformation. Emma Raimi appears as River, one of Linda's co-workers within the planning and strategy department. River is seen during the film's early corporate scenes, helping establish Linda's everyday workplace environment and illustrating the subtle ways in which Linda is routinely overlooked, underestimated, and socially excluded despite her exceptional professional capabilities. Although River is not overtly antagonistic, her interactions with Linda reinforce the atmosphere of emotional isolation that defines Linda's life before the plane crash, providing additional context for the psychological vulnerability that later shapes her actions on the island. Christy Best portrays Polly Pereira, an ambitious television journalist who interviews Linda following her dramatic rescue and return to civilization. As media interest in the airline disaster grows into an international phenomenon, Polly becomes one of the first reporters to chronicle Linda's extraordinary story of survival. Through televised interviews and public appearances, Polly helps transform Linda from an anonymous corporate employee into a globally recognized celebrity, best-selling author, motivational speaker, and cultural icon whose remarkable survival captures worldwide attention. Her scenes in the film's epilogue highlight the stark contrast between Linda's former life of invisibility and her newfound fame, while subtly emphasizing the gaps between the public's perception of Linda as a heroic survivor and the disturbing truth hidden beneath her carefully constructed narrative. Director Sam Raimi's longtime friend and frequent collaborator Bruce Campbell makes a series of uncredited photographic cameo appearances as Bradley Preston's unnamed father, the deceased founder and former chief executive officer of the financial management company. Although the character never physically appears during the events of the film, his influence is constantly felt through framed family photographs, executive portraits, commemorative paintings, and corporate memorabilia displayed throughout Bradley's office and company headquarters. These recurring visual reminders reinforce the immense legacy Bradley struggles to live up to while emphasizing the inherited privilege that defines his leadership. Additionally, longtime Survivor host Jeff Probst contributes archival audio heard during the scene in which Donovan publicly humiliates Linda by playing her old audition tape aboard the company aircraft. Raimi originally planned for Probst to appear on screen in a cameo portraying himself, reprising his role as the host of the long-running reality competition series. However, scheduling conflicts ultimately prevented the appearance from taking place, resulting in his involvement being limited to the use of authentic recorded dialogue, which nevertheless adds realism and authenticity to one of the film's most memorable early scenes. Development of Sandhelp began in October 2019, when Columbia Pictures officially announced that acclaimed filmmaker Sam Raimi had signed on to direct a new original horror project from a screenplay written by longtime collaborators Damien Shannon and Mark Swift, whose previous work in the horror genre had established them as experienced writers of suspense-driven stories. At the time of the announcement, the project remained untitled and virtually no plot details were revealed publicly, with the studio describing it only as an original horror feature. Behind the scenes, however, the creative team envisioned a film that would combine survival thriller elements with psychological horror, using an intimate, character-focused narrative rather than traditional supernatural or creature-based scares. The screenplay centered on two individuals trapped together under extraordinary circumstances, exploring how prolonged isolation, trauma, and desperation gradually transform ordinary people into increasingly unpredictable versions of themselves. Rather than relying on external monsters or paranormal threats, the writers designed the story around the emotional deterioration, moral compromises, and shifting power dynamics between its protagonists, making the psychological conflict every bit as dangerous as the unforgiving natural environment. For Raimi, the project represented an opportunity to return to one of the genres that had defined his career while simultaneously telling a more mature and restrained story than many of his earlier horror films. He was immediately drawn to the screenplay's emphasis on suspense, emotional complexity, dark humor, and morally ambiguous characters, believing that its intimate scale would allow audiences to become deeply invested in the evolving relationships between the two survivors while maintaining constant tension throughout the narrative. During the project's earliest stages of development, Columbia Pictures, a subsidiary of Sony Pictures Entertainment, initially planned for the film to debut exclusively as a streaming release, reflecting the studio's broader strategy of expanding its digital distribution portfolio during a period when streaming services had become an increasingly important part of the film industry. Sam Raimi, however, strongly disagreed with that creative and commercial direction. In a later interview with The Wrap, he explained that he believed Sandhelp possessed the cinematic scope, immersive atmosphere, and large-scale visual storytelling necessary to justify a full theatrical release. Raimi argued that the film's elaborate airplane disaster sequence, sweeping tropical landscapes, immersive sound design, carefully constructed suspense, and emotionally charged performances would achieve their greatest impact when experienced collectively on a large screen with an audience. He felt that the gradual escalation of tension and the emotional intensity of the story would lose much of their effectiveness if the film were viewed primarily as streaming content. Rather than compromise his creative vision, Raimi declined to proceed under the proposed release strategy, temporarily slowing the project's development while alternative distribution options were explored. Over the following years, the screenplay underwent additional revisions and refinement, with Raimi continuing to collaborate closely with Damien Shannon and Mark Swift to strengthen the psychological complexity of the central relationship and further emphasize the balance between survival drama and horror. As development progressed, the project officially received the title Sandhelp, a phrase that reflected both the desperate circumstances of its protagonists and the film's underlying exploration of humanity's instinctive desire for a rescue, connection, and hope. Eventually, distribution responsibilities shifted from Columbia Pictures to 20th Century Studios, whose commitment to a wide theatrical release aligned with Raimi's long-held vision for the project. The move allowed production to proceed with significantly greater confidence and positioned the film as one of the studio's major genre releases for 2026. Following several years of script development, production planning, and scheduling adjustments, Sand helped gain substantial momentum in October 2024 when Rachel McAdams entered negotiations to portray the film's central protagonist, Linda Little. McAdams had previously collaborated with Raimi on Marvel Studios' Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, 2022, where she played Dr. Christine Palmer. Reflecting on that experience, Raimi later stated that although he greatly enjoyed working with McAdams, he believed her remarkable dramatic abilities had not been fully utilized in the superhero film, seeking to give her an opportunity to showcase a much broader emotional and psychological range. Raimi envisioned Linda as one of the most demanding and transformative roles of McAdams' career. Unlike many of her previous characters, Linda required the actress to portray an extraordinary emotional journey, evolving from a socially isolated and professionally overlooked office employee into a highly resourceful survivor before gradually descending into psychological instability and moral ambiguity. Raimi explained that he was particularly interested in casting McAdams because audiences had become accustomed to seeing her portray compassionate, intelligent, and emotionally grounded women. One of the film's producers also observed that her lack of previous experience portraying a psychologically dark or villainous character would make Linda's gradual transformation even more surprising and unsettling for viewers. Following successful negotiations, McAdams officially committed to the project, beginning extensive preparation that included wilderness survival training, physical conditioning, and character research to convincingly portray Linda's dramatic physical and emotional evolution throughout the film. Casting continued to expand during the final months of 2024 as production entered its final stages of pre-production. In December 2024, Chris Bang officially joined the cast as Chase, one of Bradley Preston's closest corporate associates and a prominent member of his executive inner circle. Bang's casting strengthened the ensemble featured during the film's corporate opening act, helping establish the toxic workplace culture that ultimately shapes Linda's emotional state before the plane crash. Shortly afterward, the production secured its remaining principal cast. In early 2025, Dylan O'Brien officially joined the project to portray Bradley Preston, the newly appointed chief executive officer whose increasingly complicated relationship with Linda serves as the emotional centerpiece of the story. O'Brien's casting was widely viewed as a significant addition, with Raimi praising the actor's ability to balance confidence, vulnerability, humor, and emotional intensity within a single performance. Veteran actor Dennis Haysbert was subsequently cast as Franklin, a respected senior executive who becomes one of the few characters within the company to genuinely appreciate Linda's professional abilities and integrity. During the same period, the studio formally confirmed Rachel McAdams' casting after contract negotiations had been completed, officially announcing the film's principal cast and emphasizing the psychological dynamic between McAdams and O'Brien as the story's primary focus. Additional supporting roles, including Edyll Ismail, Xavier Samuel, Emma Raimi, Christy Best, and Aneth Warrigal-Newcrop, were filled over the following weeks, completing an ensemble that combined established performers with emerging talent. Principal photography was originally scheduled to commence in January 2025, providing several months for extensive pre-production work involving production design, location scouting, stunt choreography, practical effects development, and actor preparation. Because much of the film revolves around survival in an isolated natural environment, considerable attention was devoted to ensuring the locations appeared visually authentic while remaining practical for extended filming. Rachel McAdams and Dylan O'Brien underwent specialized survival training that included instruction in fire-making, shelter construction, fishing techniques, primitive tool use, and emergency survival skills, enabling many of the film's wilderness sequences to be performed with greater realism. Simultaneously, production designers and visual effects teams collaborated to construct elaborate aircraft interiors capable of recreating the catastrophic mid-air disaster that serves as the film's central turning point. The airplane sequences required large-scale mechanical gimbals, hydraulic rigs, wire systems, breakaway fuselage sections, and water tank facilities to convincingly simulate turbulence, explosive decompression, and the eventual ocean crash. Principal photography ultimately began in February 2025, with filming taking place across Sydney, Australia, Los Angeles, California, and Thailand. Each location served a distinct purpose within the production. Sydney housed the majority of the large-scale studio work, including corporate office interiors, aircraft cabin sets, cockpit environments, and numerous visual effects sequences. Los Angeles provided additional soundstage facilities, production offices, and supplementary photography for several dialogue-driven scenes. Meanwhile, Thailand served as the film's primary location for its survival sequences, with production utilizing the country's pristine beaches, dense tropical jungles, rugged cliffs, limestone rock formations, and remote coastal environments to authentically portray the isolated island where most of the narrative unfolds. Raimi deliberately emphasized practical filmmaking throughout production, preferring to capture as much of the natural environment on location as possible rather than relying heavily on digital backgrounds. Extensive location photography, practical stunts, and real environmental conditions helped create a grounded sense of realism while allowing the actors to physically interact with the demanding tropical surroundings. The production proved physically and emotionally demanding for both the cast and crew because of Raimi's commitment to authenticity. Rachel McAdams and Dylan O'Brien spent weeks filming in extreme tropical heat, frequently performing scenes in water, dense jungle terrain, muddy environments, rocky coastlines, and difficult weather conditions. Much of the survival material required the actors to appear progressively exhausted, injured, malnourished, and emotionally deteriorated, necessitating significant physical preparation and continuity work throughout the shoot. Makeup departments carefully tracked the characters' gradual physical decline, while costume designers created multiple progressively distressed versions of each wardrobe to reflect the passage of time. The film's elaborate airplane crash sequence became one of the production's most technically ambitious achievements, combining full-scale aircraft fuselage sets, hydraulic motion platforms, extensive wire work, practical explosions, wind machines, water effects, miniature photography, and seamlessly integrated digital visual effects to recreate the terrifying mid-air breakup and subsequent ocean impact. Throughout filming, Raimi consistently encouraged improvisation during emotionally charged scenes, allowing McAdams and O'Brien to naturally develop the evolving psychological relationships between Linda and Bradley while preserving the screenplay's carefully structured narrative. Following approximately 2.5 months of principal photography, filming officially concluded on April 17, 2025. The production then entered an extensive post-production period involving editorial assembly, visual effects integration, color grading, sound design, musical scoring, and final mixing, all of which were intended to enhance the film's atmosphere of escalating suspense and psychological unease ahead of its theatrical release in January 2026. The original musical score for Send Help was composed by Danny Elfman, marking yet another collaboration between the celebrated composer and acclaimed filmmaker Sam Raimi, whose creative partnership has spanned more than 3 decades and includes films such as Darkman, 1990, A Simple Plan, 1998, Spider-Man, 2002, Spider-Man 2, 2004, Oz the Great and Powerful, 2013, and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, 2022. Having developed a long-standing musical relationship with Raimi, Elfman approached Send Help with the intention of creating a score that emphasized psychological tension and emotional storytelling rather than relying on conventional horror tropes. Working closely with Raimi throughout post-production, Elfman carefully synchronized the music with the film's gradual transformation from a corporate drama into an increasingly unsettling survival thriller and psychological horror story. Instead of composing an aggressively bombastic horror score filled with continuous orchestral stingers and jump scare cues, Elfman adopted a far more restrained and atmospheric musical approach, allowing silence, subtle instrumentation, and carefully layered textures to become just as important as the music itself. The resulting score reflects not only the external dangers facing the protagonists but also the slow psychological unraveling of their identities as isolation, fear, exhaustion, betrayal, and desperation gradually consume them. Elfman's composition is predominantly orchestral, supported by atmospheric electronic textures, minimalist rhythmic patterns, ambient sound design, and subtle experimental elements that seamlessly blend with the film's natural soundscape. The score opens with relatively understated musical themes accompanying the film's corporate setting, using restrained piano melodies, soft string harmonies, and delicate woodwind arrangements to establish Linda Little's lonely, repetitive, and emotionally unfulfilling professional life. These early cues intentionally maintain a sense of emotional distance, reflecting Linda's isolation within the corporate world and the quiet frustration that defines her existence before the plane crash. As the story progresses and tensions begin to rise aboard the corporate jet, the music gradually introduces darker harmonic structures, pulsing low-frequency textures, and increasingly uneasy orchestral motifs that subtly foreshadow the catastrophe about to unfold. During the film's large-scale airplane disaster sequence, Elfman combines aggressive brass passages, frantic string ostinatos, powerful percussion, distorted electronic pulses, and chaotic orchestral crescendos to create an overwhelming sense of panic, confusion, and imminent disaster while carefully maintaining clarity within the action. Following the crash, the score undergoes a dramatic stylistic transformation that mirrors the shift in the film's narrative. Once Linda and Bradley become stranded on the remote island, Elfman significantly reduces the scale of the orchestration, replacing much of the larger ensemble writing with sparse musical textures, haunting sustained strings, isolated piano notes, distant percussion, processed environmental sounds, and subtle electronic drones that evoke loneliness, uncertainty, and emotional vulnerability. The score frequently allows long stretches of near silence, using only occasional musical phrases to emphasize the overwhelming isolation of the island and the fragile psychological state of its two survivors. As weeks become months and the relationships between Linda and Bradley grows increasingly unstable, Elfman gradually introduces more dissonant harmonies, irregular rhythms, fragmented melodic motifs, and unsettling sonic textures that reflect the erosion of trust between the characters. Rather than assigning traditional heroic or villainous themes, the music evolves organically alongside the characters, allowing familiar melodic ideas to become increasingly distorted as their personalities deteriorate and their moral boundaries begin to collapse. One of the score's defining characteristics is its emphasis on psychological storytelling. Instead of simply accompanying moments of danger, Elfman's music functions as an emotional extension of the character's internal struggles. Linda's evolving musical motif gradually transforms from restrained, introspective piano passages into darker, fragmented orchestral statements that mirror her increasing confidence, emotional isolation, and eventual psychological instability. Bradley's musical material similarly evolves throughout the film, beginning with confident orchestral phrases that reflect his corporate authority before gradually giving way to uncertain harmonies, restrained instrumentation, and increasingly fragile motifs as his confidence and sense of control slowly disappear. Throughout the second half of the film, Elfman expertly balances suspense with emotional intimacy, allowing scenes of survival, betrayal, vulnerability, and confrontation to unfold with remarkable musical restraint. During the film's most emotionally charged sequences, including Linda's confession about her abusive marriage, Bradley's attempted escape, the arrival of Zuri, and the climactic confrontation at the hidden beachfront estate, the score alternates between delicate emotional passages and intensely dissonant orchestral writing, heightening both the dramatic weight of the performances and the growing sense of psychological dread. Elfman's orchestration also makes extensive use of unconventional instrumental combinations and subtle electronic manipulation to reinforce the film's unsettling atmosphere. Haunting string clusters, muted brass, prepared piano effects, low-frequency synthesizers, processed vocal textures, and delicate percussion are layered together to create an evolving sonic landscape that constantly shifts between beauty and discomfort. The composer deliberately avoids overwhelming the audience with non-stop musical intensity, instead allowing the island's natural ambience, crashing waves, tropical wildlife, wind, rain, and silence to blend naturally with the orchestral score. This careful integration of environmental sound and music creates an immersive auditory experience that enhances the realism of the survival sequences while emphasizing the emotional isolation of the characters. The contrast between the breathtaking tropical scenery and the increasingly disturbing psychological conflict is further reinforced by Elfman's ability to juxtapose moments of lyrical beauty with sudden bursts of dissonance, reflecting the fragile balance between hope and despair that defines the film's narrative. Critics widely praised Danny Elfman's work as one of the film's strongest artistic achievements, highlighting its sophisticated orchestration, emotional subtlety, and remarkable ability to sustain tension without relying on conventional horror scoring techniques. Many reviewers noted that the music enhances the suspense organically, complementing Sam Raimi's restrained direction rather than overshadowing the performances or drawing unnecessary attention to itself. Particular praise was directed toward Elfman's nuanced thematic development, atmospheric sound design, and his ability to musically chart the gradual psychological transformation of Linda and Bradley throughout the film. Several critics also described the score as one of Elfman's most mature collaborations with Raimi, applauding its willingness to prioritize emotional storytelling and psychological complexity over traditional genre conventions while remaining unmistakably recognizable as one of the composer's signature works. The official soundtrack album for Sand Help was released by Hollywood Records on January 30, 2026. Coinciding with the film's theatrical release. The album features 23 original score compositions, all composed, orchestrated, and produced by Danny Elfman, presenting the complete musical arc of the film in chronological order. The soundtrack encompasses every major emotional and narrative stage of the story, from Linda's isolated corporate life and the mounting tension aboard the doomed business flight to the catastrophic airplane crash, the survivors' struggle against nature, the gradual collapse of their relationship, the film's psychologically intense final confrontation, and its haunting closing epilogue. Upon release, the soundtrack became available across all major digital streaming platforms and digital music retailers, while physical compact disc and vinyl editions were also issued for collectors and film score enthusiasts. The album was praised by critics and soundtrack reviewers for its exceptional production quality, cohesive musical structure, sophisticated orchestration, and remarkable ability to function both as a standalone listening experience and as an integral narrative component of the film itself. Many reviewers regarded Sand Help as another outstanding entry in the long-running artistic collaboration between Danny Elfman and Sam Raimi, noting that the score successfully reinforces the film's central themes of survival, isolation, identity, obsession, betrayal, resilience, and the fragile boundary separating hope from psychological collapse, further solidifying Elfman's reputation as one of contemporary cinema's most influential composers of suspense and psychological horror music. Sand Help officially began its public rollout with its world premiere at the TCL Chinese Theater in Hollywood, Los Angeles, California, on January 21, 2026. The prestigious premiere event served as the first opportunity for audiences, critics, industry professionals, and members of the entertainment press to experience director Sam Raimi's latest feature before its nationwide theatrical release. The historic venue, one of Hollywood's most iconic screening locations, provided an appropriate setting for the debut of the psychological survival thriller, which marked Raimi's return to an original, character-driven genre film after several years of working primarily on major studio franchises and established properties. The premiere was attended by Raimi, lead actors Rachel McAdams and Dylan O'Brien, supporting cast members, producers, writers Damian Shannon and Mark Swift, and members of the film's creative and technical teams. The event generated significant attention due to the combination of Raimi's reputation as a filmmaker known for blending suspense, horror, humor, and emotional storytelling with the presence of two acclaimed actors taking on unusually intense and psychologically demanding roles. During its premiere presentation, Sandhelp introduced audiences to its unique blend of survival thriller, psychological horror, and darkly comedic drama. Early reactions highlighted the film's gradual transition from a corporate workplace story into a tense battle for survival, with particular attention given to Raimi's ability to create suspense through atmosphere, character conflict, and emotional tension rather than relying solely on traditional horror techniques. Viewers responded positively to the film's isolated island setting, the escalating psychological struggle between Edyll and Bradley Preston, and the contrast between the story's visually beautiful tropical environment and its increasingly disturbing narrative developments. The premiere also showcased the performances of McAdams and O'Brien, with many early viewers praising their intense on-screen chemistry and their ability to portray two flawed individuals whose relationship constantly shifts between cooperation, distrust, dependence, and conflict. For Raimi, the event represented a major career milestone, reaffirming his ability to deliver original theatrical storytelling while returning to the suspense-driven filmmaking style that had defined many of his earlier acclaimed projects. Following its successful premiere, Sandhelp received its official theatrical release in the United States on January 30, 2026. With distribution handled by 20th Century Studios. The studio launched the film as a major early-year genre release, positioning it as a theatrical experience designed for audiences interested in survival adventures, psychological thrillers, and Sam Raimi's distinctive approach to suspense and horror. The wide release represented a significant departure from the film's earlier development plans, when the project had initially been considered for a streaming-focused release. Raimi's insistence on a theatrical presentation ultimately shaped the film's distribution strategy, allowing audiences to experience the movie's large-scale visual elements, immersive sound design, practical effects, and intense survival sequences in a traditional cinema environment. The theatrical release emphasized the film's expansive cinematography, including its remote island locations, dramatic landscapes, and elaborate airplane crash sequence, which were designed to create the sense of scale and tension best experienced on the big screen. The release strategy for Sandhelp was supported by a comprehensive marketing campaign designed to appeal to both fans of Sam Raimi's previous work and general audiences seeking a fresh survival thriller. Promotional materials focused heavily on the film's unusual premise. Two corporate employees with a deeply complicated history forced to rely on each other after a catastrophic disaster leaves them stranded far from civilization. Trailers emphasized the contrast between Linda's transformation from an overlooked office worker into a resourceful survivor and Bradley's struggle to adapt after losing the authority and privilege he once possessed. Marketing campaigns highlighted the film's themes of survival, betrayal, isolation, personal reinvention, and the psychological consequences of extreme circumstances, while also promoting the unexpected pairing of Rachel McAdams and Dylan O'Brien as the emotional center of TH. Posters, trailers, interviews, and promotional appearances emphasized Raimi's return to suspense filmmaking, the film's blend of dark humor and tension, and the unpredictable relationships between its two central characters. The theatrical launch of Sandhelp also represented an important moment for original genre filmmaking, as the film arrived during a period when many major releases were increasingly dominated by established franchises, sequels, and streaming-first projects. By committing to an exclusive theatrical release, 20th Century Studios and Raimi sought to provide audiences with a traditional cinematic thriller built around atmosphere, practical filmmaking, and strong performances rather than relying on franchise recognition alone. The film's combination of survival elements, psychological drama, and horror allowed it to occupy a distinct position within the thriller genre, appealing to viewers interested in both intense suspense and character-driven storytelling. After completing its theatrical run, Sandhelp entered the next phase of its distribution strategy, with plans for later availability through digital platforms, home entertainment releases, and additional formats following the conclusion of its cinema exhibition window. These future releases allowed audiences who missed the theatrical presentation to experience Raimi's survival thriller from home while extending the film's commercial lifespan beyond its initial theatrical performance. Overall, the January 2026 release marked the culmination of several years of development, production challenges, and creative collaboration, delivering Sam Raimi's ambitious return to an original survival thriller designed around suspense, psychological complexity, and the unpredictable nature of human behavior under extreme conditions. Following its successful theatrical run, Sandhelp transitioned into its home entertainment release cycle, allowing audiences to experience Sam Raimi's survival thriller through digital and physical formats. The film was released on video on demand (VOD) platforms on March 24, 2026, approximately 2 months after its theatrical debut. The digital release allowed viewers to purchase or rent the film through major online entertainment services, expanding its availability beyond cinemas and providing audiences with the opportunity to watch the film from home. The VOD launch also marked the beginning of the film's broader home media campaign, supported by promotional efforts emphasizing its suspenseful storytelling, the performances of Rachel McAdams and Dylan O'Brien, and Raimi's return to an original psychological thriller. The physical home media release followed shortly afterward, with Sandhelp arriving on DVD, Blu-ray, and Ultra HD Blu-ray on April 21, 2026. The Blu-ray and 4K Ultra HD editions featured enhanced picture and sound quality, allowing viewers to experience the film's detailed cinematography, tropical island environments, intense survival sequences, and atmospheric sound design with improved technical presentation. The Ultra HD Blu-ray release in particular showcased the film's visual scale, including its dramatic landscapes, elaborate airplane crash sequence, and carefully crafted lighting design, which played a significant role in establishing the movie's suspenseful atmosphere. The physical editions also included additional bonus materials, offering fans deeper insight into the filmmaking process, including behind-the-scenes features, interviews with the cast and crew, production discussions, and commentary on Raimi's directing approach, practical effects work, location filming, and the development of the film's psychological themes. After becoming available on digital platforms and physical formats, Sandhelp demonstrated strong continued audience interest through its streaming performance. According to Nielsen Media Research, which tracks streaming viewership across selected U.S. television screens, the film ranked as the third most streamed movie during the week of May 4, 2026. Generating approximately 427 million minutes of viewing time during that measurement period. The strong streaming numbers indicated that the film continued to attract significant attention after leaving theaters, with viewers responding to its combination of survival suspense, psychological conflict, and the performances of its two lead actors. The results also reflected the growing importance of post-theatrical viewing in determining the long-term success and cultural reach of major film releases. Additional audience tracking data from Just Watch, a global streaming discovery platform that collects viewing interest data from more than 45 million users worldwide, further demonstrated the film's popularity in the home entertainment market. By May 2026, Sandhelp had become the most streamed film in the United States according to Just Watch's rankings, indicating strong consumer demand across digital viewing platforms. The film's continued success after its theatrical release highlighted its ability to maintain audience engagement beyond cinemas and confirmed its position as one of the more successful original thriller releases of 2026. The strong performance across VOD, physical media, and streaming platforms contributed significantly to the film's overall commercial success, extending its revenue potential beyond its initial theatrical earnings. The home media release allowed Sandhelp to reach a wider global audience while reinforcing interest in Sam Raimi's return to survival horror filmmaking. Its strong digital performance also demonstrated the effectiveness of a traditional theatrical-to-home release strategy, proving that original genre films could achieve lasting audience engagement through multiple distribution channels. Sandhelp became a notable commercial success during its theatrical run, earning approximately $94 million worldwide against an estimated production budget of $40 million. The film generated $65 million in the United States and Canada and an additional $29 million from international territories, allowing it to more than double its production cost before factoring an additional revenue from digital rentals, physical media sales, streaming rights, and other post-theatrical distribution deals. Released by 20th Century Studios, the film's financial performance exceeded expectations for an original survival thriller that was not connected to an existing franchise, sequel, comic book adaptation, or recognizable intellectual property. Instead, its box office appeal was driven by the reputation of director Sam Raimi, the popularity of leading actors Rachel McAdams and Dylan O'Brien, the film's distinctive survival horror premise, an audience interest in character-focused thrillers with psychological tension. The film's ability to attract viewers through its original concept demonstrated continued demand for theatrical genre films built around strong storytelling, recognizable creative talent, and compelling performances. The film's commercial prospects were closely monitored before release, as Sandhelp represented a major theatrical test for an original thriller during a period when franchise films and established properties dominated much of the box office landscape. Industry analysts initially projected a moderate opening, estimating that the film would earn between $14 million and $17 million during its opening weekend in the United States and Canada. The projections were based on several factors, including Raimi's long-standing reputation as a filmmaker capable of delivering suspenseful and commercially successful genre films, the appeal of the survival thriller concept, the strong recognition of McAdams and O'Brien among audiences, and the marketing campaign's emphasis on the film's unusual premise. The studio released the movie in 3,475 theaters across North America on January 30, 2026. Where it faced competition from other new releases including Iron Lung, Shelter, and Millennia. Despite entering a competitive marketplace, Sandhelp quickly demonstrated stronger audience demand than initially expected. The film began its domestic box office run with a strong preview performance. During Thursday night preview screenings, Sandhelp earned approximately $2.2 million, suggesting significant audience interest before its official opening day. On its first full day of release, the film collected approximately $7.2 million, creating momentum heading into the weekend. Positive audience reactions, curiosity surrounding Sam Raimi's return to original survival filmmaking, and strong interest in the performances of Rachel McAdams and Dylan O'Brien helped the film maintain steady attendance throughout its opening frame. By the end of its debut weekend, Sandhelp earned approximately $19.1 million, significantly surpassing pre-release expectations and opening in first place at the domestic box office. The opening result represented an important achievement for an original thriller, particularly because the film competed without the advantage of an established franchise audience. Its debut demonstrated that audiences were still willing to support theatrical releases centered around original concepts, strong character development, and suspense-driven storytelling. Analysts credited the film's opening success to several factors, including Raimi's reputation among horror and thriller audiences, effective promotional campaigns that highlighted the survival elements and psychological conflict, the unusual pairing of McAdams and O'Brien, and positive word-of-mouth following its theatrical premiere. The film's marketing successfully positioned it as both a tense survival adventure and a psychological character study, appealing to audiences beyond traditional horror fans. In its second weekend, Sandhelp displayed strong staying power at the domestic box office, earning approximately $10 million, representing a decline of around 48% from its opening weekend. The relatively moderate drop indicated that the film benefited from positive audience reception and continued interest rather than experiencing the sharp second weekend decline often seen with genre releases. Its ability to maintain a significant portion of its opening audience allowed it to remain competitive against new theatrical releases and contributed to its eventual strong domestic total. The film's steady performance also suggested that viewers responded positively to the relationship-driven storytelling and psychological elements, which encouraged continued attendance beyond the initial fan-driven opening period. During its third weekend, Sandhelp continued its solid theatrical performance, earning approximately $8.9 million despite increased competition from newer releases entering the marketplace. The film maintained a consistent presence at the box office, benefiting from audience recommendations and continued interest among thriller, horror, and general movie audiences. In its fourth weekend, the film earned an additional $4.5 million, continuing its gradual decline while still generating reliable revenue. Rather than experiencing a rapid theatrical collapse, the film demonstrated strong legs throughout its domestic run, eventually reaching a total of approximately $65 million in the United States and Canada. Outside North America, Sandhelp earned approximately $29 million from international markets, contributing to its worldwide total of $94 million. While the majority of its revenue came from the domestic market, the film achieved respectable overseas results by appealing to international audiences interested in survival thrillers, psychological horror, and Sam Raimi's distinctive filmmaking style. The film performed particularly well in territories where Raimi's previous work had established a strong following and where genre films featuring internationally recognized actors often attract consistent theatrical audiences. Although its international earnings were lower than its North American performance, the overseas contribution played an important role in increasing the film's overall profitability. The film's worldwide gross allowed it to become a financially successful release for 20th Century Studios. With a production budget of approximately $40 million, the film's $94 million global theatrical revenue represented a strong return before considering additional income sources such as home entertainment, streaming licensing, and international distribution agreements. Its commercial performance demonstrated that original genre films could still achieve significant theatrical success when supported by experienced filmmakers, effective marketing, and audience-friendly concepts. The film's later success on digital platforms and streaming services further extended its financial performance, adding additional value beyond its cinema earnings. Overall, Sandhelp was considered a significant box office achievement and one of the stronger performing original survival thrillers of 2026. The film exceeded early projections, opened at number 1 domestically, maintained consistent audience interest throughout its theatrical run, and ultimately earned nearly $100 million worldwide. Its success highlighted the continued audience appetite for original suspense films and reinforced Sam Raimi's ability to deliver commercially appealing genre entertainment outside of major franchise filmmaking. Combined with its later home media and streaming popularity, Sandhelp established itself as both a critical and commercial milestone within the survival thriller genre. Sandhelp received widespread critical acclaim upon release, with reviewers praising it as one of Sam Raimi's strongest original genre films in years and a successful return to the filmmaker's signature blend of suspense, horror, dark comedy, and emotional character drama. Critics particularly highlighted Raimi's energetic and inventive direction, noting that he successfully transformed what initially appears to be a conventional survival thriller into a psychologically intense examination of power, resentment, privilege, and human desperation. Reviewers praised the film for balancing large-scale survival elements with a deeply personal conflict between its two central characters, Edyll and Bradley Preston, whose increasingly hostile relationship becomes just as dangerous as the island environment surrounding them. Many critics considered the film's greatest achievement to be its ability to shift between genuine suspense, uncomfortable humor, shocking violence, and emotional drama without losing its narrative focus. The screenplay by Damien Shannon and Mark Swift received significant praise for moving beyond the traditional survival movie formula. Rather than focusing solely on the physical challenges of isolation, critics noted that the film uses its stranded on an island premise as a framework to explore deeper themes, including workplace inequality, social rejection, personal reinvention, ambition, trauma, and the psychological consequences of being pushed beyond one's limits. Reviewers praised the screenplay's willingness to present morally complicated characters rather than clear heroes and villains, allowing audiences to question whether Linda's transformation represents empowerment, survival instinct, or a dangerous loss of humanity. The film's exploration of how years of humiliation and neglect can shape a person's identity was frequently identified as one of its most compelling aspects. On the review aggregation website Rotten Tomatoes, Sandhelp holds an impressive approval rating of 92% based on 299 critics' reviews, with an average rating of 7.4. The site's official critical consensus states, putting director Sam Raimi's penchant for diabolical mayhem to great use, Sandhelp doesn't need any assistance in thrills thanks to a very game Rachel McAdams and Dylan O'Brien along with a viciously clever script. The strong score reflected broad critical agreement that the film effectively combines multiple genres, including psychological horror, survival thriller, black comedy, and character drama. Critics praised Raimi's ability to maintain tension throughout the story while incorporating his trademark visual creativity and dark sense of humor. Many reviewers specifically pointed to the unpredictable relationships between Linda and Bradley as the film's central strength, arguing that the emotional conflict between the two characters creates a more compelling source of suspense than the external survival challenges alone. Critics also praised the performances of the two leads, especially Rachel McAdams, whose portrayal of Linda was widely considered one of the most ambitious performances of her career. Reviewers highlighted her ability to portray Linda's transformation from a quiet, overlooked corporate employee into a highly capable but increasingly unstable survivor. McAdams was praised for balancing vulnerability, intelligence, humor, anger, and menace, allowing audiences to understand Linda's pain while still questioning her increasingly extreme actions. Many critics noted that her performance was essential to the film's success because Linda remains a fascinating but morally complicated protagonist whose motivations constantly shift between understandable survival instincts and disturbing personal obsession. Dylan O'Brien also received strong praise for his performance as Bradley Preston, with critics noting his ability to portray a character whose confidence and privilege gradually collapse under extreme circumstances. Reviewers highlighted the contrast between Bradley's early arrogance as a powerful corporate executive and his later vulnerability when he becomes dependent on Linda for survival. O'Brien's performance was praised for capturing Bradley's desperation, fear, manipulation, and inability to accept the loss of control. Critics considered the chemistry between McAdams and O'Brien one of the film's strongest elements, emphasizing that their constantly changing dynamic creates much of the movie's tension and unpredictability. On Metacritic, Sandhelp received a score of 75 out of 100 based on 40 critics, indicating generally favorable reviews. Critics on the platform praised the film's originality, confident direction, and refusal to follow predictable survival thriller conventions. Many reviews emphasize that Raimi created a film that works simultaneously as a suspenseful survival story and a psychological study of two damaged individuals whose personal conflicts become increasingly dangerous. The film's examination of corporate culture, social status, and personal identity was frequently mentioned as a major strength. Audience reactions were also positive, with viewers surveyed by CinemaScore awarding the film an average grade of B+ on an A+ to F scale, indicating that general audiences responded favorably to its unusual premise, performances, suspense, and dark comedic elements. Alison Foreman of IndieWire awarded Sandhelp an A, describing it as wickedly lovable with the potential to be timeless. Foreman praised the film for combining outrageous genre entertainment with genuine emotional complexity, arguing that Raimi had created a movie that could be both disturbing and deeply enjoyable. She highlighted the film's ability to embrace uncomfortable humor while still treating its characters seriously, praising the way the screenplay explores survival, loneliness, and the desire for recognition. Foreman also praised McAdams' performance, describing her portrayal of Linda as a remarkable character transformation that keeps audiences emotionally invested even as the character becomes increasingly unpredictable. Michael Phillips of the San Francisco Chronicle praised the film as a showcase for its two lead performances, writing that it serves as a performance showcase for O'Brien's artfully restrained sniveling and, especially, for McAdams' miraculous shape-shifting abilities. Phillips compared the film's unusual survival premise to Castaway, humorously describing it as Castaway if Wilson the volleyball was a misogynist tool. His review emphasized that the movie's real focus is not simply surviving an island but surviving a toxic relationships between two people whose personalities and values are fundamentally incompatible. Phillips praised McAdams for her ability to move between sympathy and intimidation, while also recognizing O'Brien's portrayal of a privileged man forced to confront his own weaknesses. Frank Scheck of The Hollywood Reporter delivered a positive review, acknowledging that the film occasionally features more baroque plot twists than fully necessary and loses some momentum in parts of its final act. However, he praised the film's willingness to embrace unexpected developments and described its climax as a satisfying payoff. Scheck highlighted Raimi's ability to combine suspense, comedy, and dramatic conflict into an entertaining experience, noting that the film's unpredictable nature ultimately works in its favor. He praised the performances of McAdams and O'Brien, as well as the screenplay's ability to keep audiences uncertain about where the story would go next. Pete Hammond of Deadline Hollywood gave Send Help one of its strongest endorsements, calling it the first movie gem of 2026. A devilish treat and welcome respite from the real world. Hammond praised Raimi for delivering an original theatrical thriller that felt refreshing in an era dominated by franchise films and established properties. He highlighted the film's fast-paced storytelling, clever writing, memorable characters, and strong performances. Hammond particularly praised Raimi's ability to balance horror, humor, and suspense while maintaining a strong emotional connection to the characters. He considered the film a reminder of Raimi's talent for creating entertaining genre films with distinctive personalities. Jeanette Katsoulis of the New York Times praised Send Help for embracing Raimi's most playful and unconventional filmmaking instincts. She highlighted the contribution of composer Danny Elfman, whose score she described as an important part of the film's darkly humorous and suspenseful atmosphere. Katsoulis also praised the movie's exaggerated visual style, unusual special effects, and willingness to embrace grotesque humor. She argued that the film successfully captures the spirit of Raimi's earlier work while adding a more mature exploration of human behavior and psychological collapse. Amelia Berwing of The Wrap focused on the film's exploration of human nature, writing that it is a story rooted in the exploration of human nature and exactly who we become if it means survival both in the literal and figurative sense. Berwing praised the screenplay for examining how rejection, insecurity, and desperation can influence a person's choices. She noted that Linda's journey functions as both a physical survival story and a metaphorical examination of self-worth, identity, and the desire to finally gain control over one's life. Megan Navarro of Bloody Disgusting praised Send Help for its strong personality and clear connection to Raimi's filmmaking trademarks. Navarro highlighted the director's use of creative camera movements, exaggerated violence, dark comedy, and visual imagination, noting that the film successfully captures the chaotic energy associated with Raimi's earlier horror work. She praised the movie's combination of unpredictable storytelling, memorable performances, and psychological complexity, describing it as an effective example of Raimi's ability to make genre entertainment that is both fun and emotionally engaging. Overall, Send Help was widely regarded as one of the most acclaimed original thrillers of 2026, receiving praise for its inventive screenplay, confident direction, memorable performances, and distinctive blend of survival horror and dark comedy. Critics considered the film a successful reinvention of the survival genre, using its isolated setting to explore deeper themes of ambition, resentment, identity, and human morality. Although some reviewers felt that the increasingly extreme twists pushed the story toward excess, the majority agreed that Raimi's energetic direction and McAdams' powerful lead performance elevated the material. The film was ultimately recognized as a compelling and unpredictable psychological thriller that reaffirmed Sam Raimi's ability to create original genre cinema with both entertainment value and thematic depth. Review: When Rob Reiner cast Kathy Bates in Misery, There was a sense that lightning had struck twice, not just because Bates was unknown as an actor, but because Reiner truly understood how to use a performer's perceived softness as its own weapon of suspense. The legendary film from 1990 hinges on Bates' all-consuming transformation into Annie Wilkes, a mousy woman dismissed by the world only to reveal her vindictive nature when the rules collapse. Sam Raimi's Send Help operates in a similar register with the crucial, modern twist. Rachel McAdams is not a secret waiting to be unearthed. She's an Oscar nominee, Spotlight, a romantic icon, The Notebook, and one of the great comedic villains of the 21st century, Mean Girls. Casting her opposite Dylan O'Brien in a two-hander survival horror comedy might sound, on paper, like a miscalculation. Dropping a full-blown movie star into a role that demands humiliation, restraint, and a willingness to look foolish can backfire. But here, it's a multiplying factor, and McAdams' star power doesn't flatten Send Help but electrifies it. The most purely enjoyable Raimi film in years, the upcoming Desert Island debacle from 20th Century Studios is an ideal synthesis of the director's career thus far. It's got the gruesome ingenuity from his breakout debut, The Evil Dead, fused with the pop comic precision that made him a revolutionary force for Sony's original Spider-Man, ghastly without being grim and morally queasy without being mean. Send Help delivers its biggest laughs and gasps through brilliantly managed physical suffering, that includes what may be Raimi's finest puke gag since Drag Me to Hell, and a vintage gross-out approach to black comedy that's executed with the confidence of someone who knows where to draw his line in the sand. Meet Linda Little, McAdams, a long-suffering corporate underling dragged on an international business trip after getting passed up for a promotion. Her new boss, Bradley Preston O'Brien, is a passive-aggressive tyrant with American psycho instincts, but boundless entitlement and a gift for micromanagement can't save him when their plane crashes in the Gulf of Thailand. He and Linda are the only two survivors, and with HR nowhere to be found, that in fact immediately flips their dynamic. The kind of boss who would crawl inside your abdomen instead of turning down the air conditioning. Bradley suddenly can't function without Linda. What's worse, he's got her bum leg and couldn't outrun her, or any other threat, if he tried. Raimi and screenwriters Damien Shannon and Mark Swift, Freddy vs. Jason, Friday the 13th, Baywatch, waste no time turning the island into a pressure cooker. At first, the setting feels pulled from grounded survival dramas like Castaway or The Impossible. But Linda, armed with decades of survivor knowledge and the quiet competence of someone who's always cleaning up other people's messes, thrives with cartoonish joy. Shortly after washing ashore, she builds shelter, starts a fire, collects water, goes fishing, and adopts a breezy efficiency that borders on smug. Soon, she's carved her name into a cup and woven herself a backpack, territorial gestures that mirror the small ways she once claimed space in the office. Simultaneously, Bradley collapses in the absence of capitalism. He refuses to eat, complains about sunburn, and rejects the reality of the hell he's living in with relentless tenacity. His attempts at survival are so inept they feel like a cell phone, and the jungle's creatures, rendered with goofy digital effects that are visually consistent enough to feel acceptable, seem to exist solely to punish him. The longer the torture goes on, the more Send Help starts to resemble Linda's wish fulfillment. Caught somewhere between Office Space and I Spit on Your Grave, it's a workplace nightmare stripped to its rawest, most relatable revenge components. That's where McAdams becomes indispensable. As Linda Little, a name that even sounds cut from the same cloth as Annie Wilkes, she's still an impossibly luminous presence. Introduced trudging around her sad little apartment in an oversized robe, talking to a pet cockatiel, McAdams can't hide who audiences know her to be. Even after colliding with Bradley on his first day as CEO and promptly spitting a tuna fish sandwich on him, Linda remains quietly glamorous and adorable. But McAdams' performance is so rigorously committed that dissonance becomes the point, and her Oceanside glow upstairs the film's second half. Wickedly lovable with the potential to be timeless, Send Help is controlled delirium microwaved on high heat. At 66, Raimi reminds us who he was when he made horror comedy history with Evil Dead 2, and more importantly, why his voice still matters. Watching McAdams snarl and strategize, You can practically imagine how much fun Raimi would have had handing her a chainsaw in the 80s. He still splatters her with blood here, proving it's never too late for the right collaboration, and that neither he nor McAdams should ever be underestimated. Grade A from 20th Century Studios. Sand Help is in theaters January 30th.